York's classic rock, Q1043.
Steve Perry is with us this morning here at Q104.3. It's been a long, long time, Steve.
It's been a long time coming since I saw your face.
But we are two parts of a trivia question. Which is funny. And the trivia question would be, who spoke the first words and who spoke the last words on the final episode of The Sopranos? Mm-hmm. And that would be you and me.
That's right. But somebody has to call in and tell you that.
We keep reminding them, believe us.
I mean, I was in shock along with everybody else watching that episode, and no doubt you were as well. Yeah. I mean, you knew they were going to use the song, right?
I
because
knew
they got the mechanical
Thursday before they did it, because I said no till then, because as songwriters we all have to agree.
Right.
The other two guys had agreed, and I said, look, if the family's going to get whacked in a diner, I don't want to use the song.
But we don't know if they got whacked.
We don't know
I know
to this
that.
day.
I know that, but I didn't know anything because I had not seen anything. Mm-hmm. I just know they wanted the song. So I said, I kind of need to know what's going to happen or not happen. They said, well, you promised not to tell. I said, okay, but you got to tell me or I can't say yes. So they said, what happened? And I went, okay, but they didn't tell me I went to black. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there like you going.
What did they tell you then?
I can't tell you.
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me.
No, they basically walked me through the whole selection of the jukebox by the table.
Yeah.
And how he looked for this, he's seen Hart. He looks for this, he sees Tony Bennett. He goes, he sees another one, a page, he sees Journey. Then he reaches in his pocket, he puts the quarter in there, and you see him push some numbers. And everybody thinks, well, it's going to be Tony Bennett, because he's a mobster.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he validates the fact that, wow, Tony Soprano digs Journey. Mm-hmm. It was an iconic moment for us.
Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that the part that I recorded was going to open the episode. I mean, I thought it might be on in the background while somebody was driving around in a car.
Right.
I mean, had I known, I would have invited some people over to watch it with me. I was just sitting in I was sitting all alone on the couch watching TV. And,
did they clear it with you, of course?
Well, they asked me. I recorded that especially for them.
Oh, I see.
They didn't record it off the radio.
They didn't tell you what was going to happen.
No, they just said it would be in the episode.
Didn't tell anybody.
Oh, see, everybody was a secret, see?
Yeah.
Wow. That's the biz.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's been a long time since we've heard from you. And, every once in a while, somebody will say, Steve Perry's at the ball game. He's there with his beloved San Francisco Giants.
That's right.
Or, Steve decided to get up on stage with some buddies. And,
yes, the Eagles, back in 2014,
and do a song or two. Yeah. But you, having left Journey, were in the midst of an extraordinarily successful solo career at the time that you walked away. And that's just difficult for most people to understand.
Yeah.
When I read the explanation...
Which is, what do you have there?
I have here that you decided to step away from music when you lost your love for it.
That's basically it.
And that I can't understand. Of course, I'm a consumer of music, not a creator of music. And I understand there's a big difference, but it's hard to wrap my brain around that concept. You're so good at it. How could you lose your love for it?
What does that mean?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, we worked really hard, and we were very fortunate to have that kind of success, and that means you're going to work extra hard because you are successful. We were playing big venues, and it seemed like it was never going to stop, which I loved performing for the audience. That in itself is a very intoxicating drug unto itself. And it's a dream come true for a kid like me from the Central San Joaquin Valley of California to get into a band and become successful. It was truly a dream come true. But at the edge of leaving, I would say I was getting so crispy. I was just burnt out. And when I was really young, about 5-6 years old, I discovered music. And I used to just listen to these 45s till I was blue in the face, just what are they saying and how are they saying it? Why does it feel so good? And listen to those drums and listen to those rhythms. And I became captivated by the landscape of the music that was coming out of my record player. And I never left that passion for it. It went with me everywhere. And because my parents split up about a year later, that passion saved me. Really, it did. So fast forward to getting the opportunity to be in the band, I took that passion with me. And through all the Journey material, I had that sort of foundational passion there. And then towards the end of the cycle that we're talking about, where we're working hard and I'm getting pretty toasty. Also mixed with some performance enhancing behaviors, I might say, back in the day. You know,
right.
Sometimes we got into that stuff. That was called Burned Out. And the only thing that made sense to me was going to be a very unpopular decision. I know the band was not going to like it, and I certainly know it's going to be not nice to the fans. But at some point, I had to take care of myself, and I had to just stop.
But you stopped for almost a quarter of a century.
That's a long time.
You know, once I stopped, I realized there's a lot of work to be done because I had to be okay away from all that. I had to find a way to me just being enough now, you know, because we don't become performers or radio personalities because you don't love performing. So there's an aspect of that that enhances your life, and to walk away from what you love doing because it enhances your life is hard. So to be able to be enough without it was the real challenge. And I felt that needs to be foundationally inside my chest addressed.
Well, besides being a performer, you're a composer.
Yeah, and I write music. And I didn't even write music.
You didn't even write music?
And I didn't sing in the shower.
Because I was wondering if you had written songs that you just kept to yourself.
No.
No.
I literally walked away with the conviction that if it came back, my passion for it, then so be it. If it didn't, then I'd already lived the dream of dreams.
Well, the song Noah Racin from the new album Traces is, well, it has been described as kind of an emotional reconnection with old friends, the old friends being your audience.
Well, and also originally it was written about a reunion situation, going to a high school reunion, and you run into somebody you used to know back in the day, and you once were an item, and you go off into her car and you
well, that's the backseat part.
Yeah, that's the backseat part.
That's the backseat
And you go to
part.
the little area you used to smooch.
Yeah, you mentioned the backseat part twice.
I
in the
know
song.
because I like the backseat of her
because
car.
it was a happy memory. You know.
That's right. But also, you're right. There's layers of relationships and the emotions attached to that you can't erase. You just can't.
And there was a popular song about that subject by the Classics 4 going way back, called Traces. And
that was their song. That's right. Yeah.
And that had to do with, you know, there are things from the past that you are never going to be able to get out of your head.
Right.
Ever.
I love Spooky. That was a great song.
Yeah. But it seemed that song, more than about the back seat, was about reconnection.
It is about reconnection.
I mean, we're going to hear it in a few minutes.
Yeah. It is about reconnection to something in your heart that you may have turned away from or didn't know it was there. And now it's time to reconnect with something that is not going away because, you know, wherever you can go on vacation today. You can go to an island and enjoy yourself, but guess what? Wherever you go, there you are, and there it is too. You know, it's just always with you, these memories.
Since you had been away for so long, was there ever any hesitancy on your part about attending the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony? Or were you enthusiastic immediately at the prospect of being there to be so honored?
Well, to be so honest, it was really confusing to me because I so wanted to be there. At the same time, we have a bit of a history. And at the same time, I so wanted to be there. So it resurrected, as I just said, a lot of feelings that won't go away, good and bad, between us all, you know. So the last minute, I realized that I just want to be there. And there's some things I want to say. And when I walked out there, they had a teleprompter way in the distance of, you know, they were kind of running that show in a TV sort of fashion. But I really didn't give a damn about that. So I pulled a piece of paper out of my pocket.
Oh, that must people must have been clutching their chests in the control room at that point.
Yeah, heart attack time.
Where's it going? Where's Steve going with this, you know? So I pulled the paper out. I said, you know, I got a lot of things to say. So here I go, you know? And so I did. And I wanted to thank Greg Rowley for letting me live at his house and writing the first record with him. And then I moved to Neil's and lived at his house for a while. And then the manager, who was sitting out there too, who heard my demo tape, who told the band, you should work with this kid. You know, he's pretty talented. I like his songwriting. I like his voice. I think he's right for the band. And they were a little trepidatious in the beginning, I think, but they slowly warmed up to the idea. And his insistence, I think, was a big part of me getting in the band. So I had to thank him too.
Well, I was very pleased to to learn that you were not the only former member of the band who was there
That's right.
to be.
There's
inducted.
a lot of them.
You know,
right. Ainsley Dunbar.
and it just seemed like a really special moment.
Yeah.
And you were, from what I understand, just as warm and generous as any person can be to another person in your dealings with Arnell,
Yeah.
who idolizes you.
Well, he's a great kid, and he sings his heart out every night, and he's been in the band, I think, for 10 years.
Something like that.
Something like that. I mean, this is a great gig for him. You know, it was a great gig for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great gig for him, you know? So, I mean, he's just a sweet kid, and I'm really happy for him.
And, you remember, he was thrilled.
Of course.
Well, singer to singer, we got to stick together as singers. You know what I mean? We go through a lot. People don't want to talk about it, but singers go through a lot. Well, I'm not whining, but when your instrument is you're using your voice all the time. You don't have a guitar in your hand. You don't have a bass in your hand or drumsticks. Your instrument is you.
You do know that guitarists mock you behind your back. They do. They do. Especially these British rock stars all have nicknames for their lead singers.
I know.
They consider their lead singers to be divas, and they give them nicknames.
But
Well-
can you see yourself ever doing anything with Journey again?
That's a really tough question. I must tell you that it took me years to find the passion for music again, and I really walked away with the conviction that if it never came back, that will just have to be fine, and I'll just continue to live into my life. So right now, I'm just really pleased that I found my songwriting again. I found the conviction to singing again, because I really was comfortable just not going back. But music showed up again and just knocked down some of my walls in my heart that I thought I'd never feel again. So right now, I must tell you, I am just committed to what I'm doing right now, and I love what I'm doing right now.
Steve Perry is with us here at Q104.3. When I was reading about your relationship with the sadly departed
Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I get emotional when I get into
Kelly.
to this
Jim
sort of
didn't
thing.
didn't feel comfortable even bringing this
That's
up.
okay. I can talk
and
about it.
What we heard was Kelly is the reason you're back. Is that the case?
And
Can you
well,
tell
we
the
have to
story?
let people know who she is.
Yeah.
Right.
You met Dr. Kelly Nash
Right.
through your good friend.
I love you called her Dr. Nash. You know how hard she worked to get that? She worked very hard to become a PhD psychologist.
Right,
I
well-
mean, busted her butt on it.
Well,
when I met her, she had already had her clientele. She had an amazing place where, you know, and I remember when, like, our third or fourth date, I just wanted to talk to her about how much I was crazy about her. So I said, I used to joke I'm Dr. P, you know, because I was a Portuguese psychologist, and she thought that was hilarious. And by the way, I could get her laughing. It was my dream to make her laugh. So I show up at her place of work, and I push the button on in the waiting room, and she comes out in this gray little dress down to her knees with these beautiful, just sort of cream-colored snakeskin high heels, very little makeup on because she's working. And I looked at her and I thought, oh my goodness. She loves her work. She has a job. You know, it was so sexy to me to see her be so independent and loving something she's crazy about. It was attractive to me.
And you fell in love with
And
her.
I fell deeply in love with her.
And she suffered from breast cancer.
She was fighting breast cancer when I met her for 3 years and going through chemo, which was the only thing that you could do back then. I was just couldn't separate myself from her. I wanted to be wherever she was.
And you lost her in 2012.
I lost her. We were together for a year and a half, and that year and a half felt like 5 because it was so intense together, including, to answer your question, one night we were talking and she said, honey, I need to ask you a question. I said, well, what's that? If something was ever happened to me, make me a promise that you won't go into isolation again I think it would make this all for naught. And I thought, all for naught, that is such a huge statement. I mean, she's looking at the arc of her life and then meeting together and then maybe us not being together and her going. I'm going, this is like a huge moment. And I just said, I promise. And so after I lost her, about 2, maybe 3 years of serious grieving with some psychological assistance from some professionals, I got through that process, and I started to write music again. I think it opened my heart up again.
So this relationship that you had with this wonderful person allowed you to reemerge back into the world again. This sounds like an extraordinarily powerful relationship. One that, brief as it was, and as sad as her departure is, you were a lucky guy.
Oh, no. Listen, my mom died. I never spoke at her funeral. My grandfather, who raised me because my father was gone, never spoke at his funeral. Grandmother, I couldn't do it. But when we went and did her memorial, her funeral, I got up there and I just said, when I met Kelly, I felt like I was the luckiest guy in the world. It's like I had done some cool things in my life that came with, success, adoration, or everything else that luck is usually attached to.
Right.
But I got to tell you, it dwarfed comparison to meeting this girl.
Steve Perry is with us here at Q104.3. You recorded a version of the Beatles' I Need You.
Yeah.
But you changed it around a little bit.
I did, because when I first heard of the song, it was from the Help album, I believe.
Yeah.
And when I first heard the song, I was very young, and they did sort of a bossa nova version, tick, 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 and I'm thinking, what? You don't realize, and I'm thinking,
it was a great song.
Right? And I thought, that's so cool, but that song is so much better than that, my mind told me. I was very young. I'm already, criticizing, musically.
Wait a second. Contemporaneously, when you heard this when you were young,
I did.
In your mind, you felt you could improve
you know
upon
why?
it?
Because I heard it in my head as an R&B song like I just recorded it. When I was a kid.
How old were you think?
16, 18, somewhere in there. Teenager. Yeah, I just heard it as a bigger song because it is a bigger song. George Harrison wrote an amazing song. And they just, they kind of, I guess they tossed George a bone every now and then.
One or two tracks an album.
Right.
One or two tracks an album.
Until he got to Abbey Road, when he wrote the best songs of all, of course.
Well, Here Comes the Sun and Something.
Something in the Way. I think he kind of slayed them a bit.
But it was always frustrating for him.
Yeah, of course.
It was always very frustrating because he was a very talented songwriter, but he was in a band with Lennon and McCartney. What do you do?
And they're writing, they're the hit machine.
So you reimagined I Need You as a big R&B song.
I did. That's how I heard it originally back then as a kid, because I just thought that they'd done a good job doing it, but I really thought it was a bigger sort of R&B pocket thing. And a friend of mine, Steve Ferroni, is very close to Olivia Harrison, and I said someday I'd love to play the song for her and get her blessings. And he said, "Oh yeah." He said to me, "I'm going out to Vegas with her right now. Me and Tom are doing a show." I said, "What are you doing?" "We're doing a benefit out in Vegas. She's going to fly with us." I said, "Good. Like, what will you ask her?" "Right, okay." So he comes back, and he says, "Oh, I spoke to her. Here's her email. She said to give her a call." I said, "What?" so all of a sudden I'm emailing Olivia Harrison, and I'm trying to be very careful every question. "Can I please talk to you? I just want to play you this song." And she gets back to me immediately. It was so beautiful. So I went to her office and I played her a song, and I was so nervous because when you're in the George Harrison environment, you just feel him there. And it's Olivia, so, and she listens to it, and then she quickly grabbed the remote and restarted. And I went, God, I hope she loves it, And she restarted and got halfway through the second listen and said, George would have loved this version.
Aww.
And I'm telling you, I got the blessing.
And your friend who arranged this meeting for you, he's from
Steve Ferroni,
yeah, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, he was in the Heartbreakers for years.
Now the album is going to be released in
October 5.
October. People can right now actually pre-order it.
Right.
The artwork on the cover.
Oh my God!
We just saw it moments ago. It just astonishingly interesting.
Thank you. My whole life is in it. There are traces of moments and iconic images that have touched my life or been a huge part of my life, including like the theater and the marquee in the right corner where my father used to sing before I was born is the Hanford Theater. And so we put on the marquee appearing Ray Perry's son. That's me.
Oh.
And then there's my old houses to the right where I was raised. And if you look close in the window, there's a little boy looking out the window trying to get out of that house. There's a lot of iconic moments on that cover.
So it's pretty much
My life.
an autobiography,
It is.
a visual autobiography.
You know, maybe I should write a book and that should be the cover now that I think about it. That's not
But
so bad.
isn't it a mural at your house?
I have the original artwork blown up to a very large size, as does the art designer who did it with me, Jeff Wack. And we have the only 2 copies of that, and it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Well, you've made a return to recording. Do you plan on returning to the stage?
We're talking about that. I mean, that's a whole nother kettle of fish right now. I'm trying to just talk about finding my passion for music again because, as I said, I didn't know if it was ever going to come back. So that's kind of the main thing right now. But I would, of course, ultimately, I'd love to perform again because I still have a performing sort of like ham factor in me, you know?
Well, and you have the Eels are your pals.
I did, yeah.
Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Yeah.
Your buddies. You of course you have few contemporaries because you've been
Gone.
so successful. You've had an extraordinary career. However, there was a time when you were a kid and you were listening to the radio, and we were talking before we turned the microphones on about your admiration for Sly and the Family Stone.
I
when
love
you were
Sly.
young, they were a Bay Area.
Love everything they did.
And what did you play on the drums?
Well, I was in a band. We used to play, cover tunes, and "Sing a Simple Song" was one of my favorites. I used to play and sing that on drums. The drum pocket of that is very cool. It's just it pumps, as you're singing. Yeah. It just pumps.
And some of your other favorite records. Go back to being a kid. What were some of your favorite records?
Oh, well, the earlier ones would be probably some Sam Cooke music. The Angels Listened In, I think, by either the Crests. I love that one. I love Dinah Washington. I loved Aretha.
Yes, and we lost her last
I
week.
know.
Yeah.
We lost her last week. And, of course, there's the story often told of Otis Redding hearing her version of Respect for the very first time and saying, well, that song belongs to her now. But when I was thinking specifically about that song, and she's had so many, I mean, whether it be Carole King's Natural Woman or songs that she wrote herself like Rock Steady, I mean, just so many great songs from Aretha Franklin. But, Respect, Otis Redding wrote it, he recorded it. Other guys recorded Respect. And there were rock bands that recorded Respect. Rationals had a hit with Respect
I didn't know
before Aretha Franklin recorded it. But these were all guys recording the song. And when Aretha recorded it and sang it from a woman's point of view, it actually changed the meaning of the song.
It totally did.
It changed the whole interpretation of what that song was about. And it was her that added that special magic to Otis's composition that made it iconic.
And, she was challenged by the fact that she came up through the church, of course. And I don't think her father was very pleased that she had moved into what they used to call
secular
music.
world. Yeah,
That's
secular
right.
music.
Because this was God's music and she's singing secular music. And RESPECT, is kind of a little bit of a sexy connotation.
Very sexy.
Yeah, right. I want some respect when I come home kind of thing. So I think there was a little bit of an emotional riff in the family. I don't know where that went, but I must say that I have a bucket list. One of the ones, unfortunately, I'll never, ever fill was to get to meet her.
Well, the album is Traces, and the lead track, No Erasing, that's what we used to call a single.
Yeah.
The lead track, No Erasing, is available now. The album itself will be released on Friday, October 5th on Fantasy Records. It is such a pleasure to welcome you here to Q104.3.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. This has really been fun. Thank you.
And before the album is released, I understand we're going to be able to hear and play a couple of other tracks.
Yes, we're rolling, as they say, we're rolling a few more tracks, yes.
Is that the term now?
I think it used to be called singles. Now we just roll out tracks.
And those would be?
Well, the new one, the second one will come out in a few weeks maybe. We're not sure. Will be No More Crying.
Okay. And a song called Sunshine's Gray?
Sunshine's Gray is one of my favorite rock tracks. John Five is a friend of mine. We got together one day and wrote this song in a minute. He came up with the title, which I loved. And if you've met John Five, I mean, he's got that sort of like darkness to him, you know? And the idea of Sunshine's Gray is a beautiful juxtaposed sort of like concept.
Well, it's amazing to me that, you know, he's played with David Lee Roth, Marilyn Manson,
Rob Zombie,
Garbage, Scorpions, Ozzy Osbourne, Slash, and K.D. Lang.
He gets around. He gets around.
Yes.
And you've never heard his country picking. His country picking is amazing. He's like a speed boy on this guitar.
Mm-hmm. Well, John Sebastian and Nashville Cats. He knew of which he sang back in the 1960s.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you on the release of this. Congratulations to you on the upcoming release of this great new album, Traces. It must have made you feel really good, even during periods when you were feeling really bad, to be aware that every single day, all over the world, during the quarter century that you step back, every single day, your songs were played on the radio globally.
Man.
There wasn't a day that went by during that entire time when people weren't enjoying your music.
And, you know, that was always something that was just emotionally just present and gnawing at the truth of my heart, which is people love you, Steve. And I'm going, yeah, I'm kicking sand. That was a long time ago, you know. I was in the band and we did well, and I was just minimizing that so I could keep walking away from my heart and from my mental health.
Yeah, but deep down inside.
But deep down inside.
You knew it. You knew that. You knew those people had affection for you.
I'm telling you, there's no erasing your feelings. I'm telling you can't run from them, okay?
Steve Perry, thank you so much.
Thank you much.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.